Hi, good afternoon. We are looking at the endocrine system. This is just the introduction. My name is Mr. Siwali Donald. Okay, endocrine system together with the nervous system, they are involved in controlling and regulating many physiological processes in the body, such as growth, protein synthesis, um, even mitosis, and many other, even reflexes, peristaltic movements. So these two systems, the endocrine system and the nervous system, they're involved in this. So the endocrine system, it comprises of organs or glands that produces hormones. As we know, hormones, these are chemical messengers. Okay. So in this lecture, we'll look at I'm introducing to you the hormones of the body, the major hormones of the body. So from this diagram, you can see that we have the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the thymus, and here around the neck region, we can see two things there, the thyroid gland and then the parathyroid glands. And then we have the adrenal glands on top of the superior to the kidneys. These are also called adrenal glands or suprarenal glands. And then we have the pancreas, the ovaries, and the testes. Now, when the hormones have been released, they target what we call the target cell. Okay, so the hormone secreting cell is called a signaling cell, and the cell that receives the hormone is called the target cell. So what are the stages involved in terms of communication between the signaling cell and the target cell? So the first stage is reception. The receptors, these are integral proteins located in the cell membrane. Then after a hormone binds to the receptor, a specific receptor, there will be transduction. What is transduction? These are cascades of cellular responses cellular actions that takes place within the cell. So there's relay molecules in signal transduction pathway. Okay, for example, there's activation of certain enzymes. As we know, enzymes, these are biological catalysts that speeds up reactions. So you see that most of the processes in the body, they require enzymes. Okay, apart from that, transduction also results in activation of what we call secondary active, secondary messengers. So the third stage is a response. This is a physiological action that you observe. Okay, so every hormone carries a message. Insulin carries a message instructing a target cell to increase absorption of glucose. Hormones such as parathormone, they also carry a message instructing a cell to increase calcium absorption. So every hormone carries a message. So for this message to be channeled, it follows these three stages: reception, transduction, and response. Now we can give a specific example of antidiuretic hormone, also called AVP. AVP stands for arginine vasopressin. So we have this cell, okay. This is at the collecting duct epithelium found within the kidneys, the renal tubules. So the first stage is that of reception is V2 receptor receives the ADH, and then the third stage of transduction is ADH binds to the receptor complex. It activates this enzyme, adenylyl cyclase, converting ATP to cyclic AMP, okay, as a second messenger. And the protein kinase A then causes phosphorylation of intracellular structures. So all these is showing transduction mechanism. Cyclic AMP, as we know, it's adenosine monophosphate. So it's made up of a nitrogenous base and the ribose sugar. attached to one phosphate group. So it activates protein kinases, it increases gene transcription required for synthesis of aquaporins. Okay, so this is just an example of cell signaling, also called as intracellular communication between cells. Okay, so this is a mechanism of action of ADH. Even other hormones will be able to explain with such a diagram. We're going to see later on. So hormones, these are not the only chemical messengers in the body. We also have the local hormones, which are secreted from other tissues. These we'll not discuss, but we'll be referring to them as we learn physiology. Okay, so they are classified into classical hormones secreted by the endocrine glands, which is our focus, and local hormones secreted from other tissues. But recent chemical messengers are classified into 4 types: the endocrine messengers, paracrine messengers, autocrine messengers, neurocrine messengers. Okay, so these can be defined using a diagram here. So what is a chemical messenger? From the diagram here, we have endocrine messenger, whereby a signaling cell releases a signaling molecule, in this case a hormone, which is transported through blood, and then it reaches the target cell. That is endocrine messengers. And then we have paracrine messengers. A signaling cell releases a chemical messenger which diffuses through the interstitial fluid until it reaches the target cell, and then you see a physiological response. But again, on paracrine, there is this paracrine messenger where the signaling cell and the target cell, they are in close proximity. That is called juxtacrine messengers, and they are linked by gap junction. So the molecule diffuses through the gap junction and it affects the target cell. Okay, and then we have neurocrine messenger, an example of neurotransmitter. This one we are very conversant with it, for example, at neuromuscular junction. Okay, we also have neurocrine messenger, also called neurohormones, where a neuron secretes a signaling molecule. Okay, that is a signaling molecule is both secreted by the endocrine gland. It's also secreted by the nerve cell. So those are called neurohormones. Example of epinephrine. Epinephrine is secreted by the parasympathetic nervous system. It's also secreted by glands such as the medulla, the adrenal medulla. This other one is called the autocrine messenger, whereby the signaling cell releases the signaling molecule which affects the same signaling cell. Okay, so we are able to see some of these, like histamines, leukotrienes, prostaglandins. Those are examples of local chemical messengers. Now, endocrine glands, there's a word called ductless gland, which can be shown in form of this. Yes, an endocrine gland, they are always ductless, but the exocrine glands, they have ducts. Okay. Now, just to run through the hormones, the anterior pituitary gland secretes about 6 hormones, which are abbreviated as GH, TSH, SCTH, FSH, LOH. So we need to know these terminologies. Okay, I mean these abbreviations. And then the posterior pituitary gland secretes 2 of them. We have antidiuretic hormone, which is also called arginine vasopressin, and oxytocin, which is very important in contraction of the uterus during labor, child delivery. And then we have the thyroid gland. These hormones, they are associated with iodine. Okay, they are synthesized from iodine. We're going to look at them later on. We have T4 and T3. T4 and T3, T4 means tetraiodothyronine, and T3 means triiodothyronine. Okay. Calcitonin, although not really associated with iodine, this is a hormone that is involved in regulation of calcium. Okay, it is secreted when the calcium levels are high, but parathormone is secreted when the calcium levels are low. So when we look at calcium levels, calcium homeostasis, we're going to talk about these two hormones. And then we have the pancreas of islets of Langerhans. They secrete 4 hormones: the insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, and pancreatic polypeptide. Then the adrenal cortex, very important, it secretes mineralocorticoids such as aldosterone, which is involved in regulation of sodium levels. It increases sodium reabsorption, and we know sodium is linked to blood pressure. And then we have glucocorticoids. These are released in situations where the body is under stress. So it helps the body to cope stressful situations. Then we have the sex hormones, androgens. So about 25% of the sex hormones, they are released by the adrenal cortex, especially progesterone. Okay, apart from the gonads, there are sex hormones there's a percentage of sex hormones which comes from the adrenal cortex. And then we have the adrenomedulla. These are the ones we are calling neuroendocrine hormones. Okay, they also act as neurotransmitters. We'll look at those later on. And then the testes, the ovaries, they also secrete these hormones, although we'll discuss this under the reproductive system. Okay, we also have hormones secreted by other glands, just to help you know this. For example, do you know that the heart can also secrete hormones? We have the atrionatriuretic peptide, which work hand in hand with aldosterone. Okay, it does that. So you can look at these later on. Even the kidneys, they secrete hormones. Okay, so in this lecture, you should be asking yourself that, or you should understand the functional anatomy of the endocrine gland, especially the cell type, the cell type, the histological aspects. And then you should be able to identify the hormones secreted by the various glands. You should also describe how these hormones are secreted, that is, what factors trigger or inhibit secretion of these hormones. You should also be able to state the functions of these hormones. Every hormone has a function. And then you should also be able to describe the mechanism of hormonal action. Okay, how does it achieve those functions? You should also be able to describe hormonal regulation. How is the hormone regulated? You should also be able to describe the functional tests. How can we assess the status of the glands? Is there hypersecretion or hyposecretion? We also need to describe the disorders associated with the hormones, explaining the alteration in normal physiology causing various clinical presentation and treatment. Although these are just little information, but the detailed information will cover this in pathology. Okay, so this is just introduction. We'll now look at other glands one by one. Okay, thank you very much.